Okay, so to close out of an app, if you don't want it open, there's in all of our applications, there's an X, a minus, and a question mark. This is the help, minimize, and close. So you click on that, it takes a second for it to close. Same thing here. This is the character generator. We're going to close that out. It's asking me if I want to save this crawl that I've created. I don't really want to, so I'm just going to say no. And now we're back at the desktop on the second monitor here. What you're seeing on this side is just my screen capture application, so we're not really worried about that. I am going to minimize it for a minute and talk about a couple of new things today that we put on this morning. On the desktop, you're going to see on each of these desktops, monitor 1, that refers to this screen particularly, and then monitor 2, which refers to this screen. So what I want to do is I want to launch Switcher on this side over here. So I'm going to open up monitor 2. And I'll set that over there. And I'm going to launch the switcher. Everything is just double click. Like I said yesterday, as it launches, you're going to see what version of software it's currently running. If you ever do run into any technical questions or whatever, you can always just, if you can note that, then email or call me and tell me, hey, I'm having this issue, and by the way, it's this version of software, so I know if it's a bug or whatever. So switcher is up. And this is sort of the default layout. Yesterday we talked briefly about setting up different layouts. So for example, we created this one. It's called Morning Show, and it has these elements that are available. Saving layouts. I'll just show you how to save a layout again real quick. Basically, if you were to accidentally close out all of that, how would you open stuff? How would you be able to access your content? This is always going to be present, although it could be if you were crazy enough up here, and then everything else down here. It's kind of personal preference, I guess. But typically it's set up like this. To open up the monitors that we were seeing, the program and preview windows, you're going to go to Panels, and then Monitors. We're currently set on black on program and preview, so you're not seeing anything in these windows. A little smudge on the screen there. And then if you want to open your bins where your content is, you can just right click in this gray area and choose New Bin Window. And a bin is literally a folder on your hard drive on this computer. So if you were to plug in your thumb drive, you'd be able to access it from here just by right clicking on Parent and choosing Logical Drives, which would then show me whatever drives are connected. You can also access any shared folders on a network this way. So if you were creating graphics and this were on the network, you could drop those graphics into a shared folder and then access them that way instead of having to put them on a thumb drive and walk down here and all that. By default, usually it's going to always come up to bins, the bins directory. That's kind of the home base, if you will. So if you ever get lost, you've drilled down into some folder and you need to quickly get back to somewhere I always just recommend close, right click, new bin window, and you're right back to where you want to be. I don't want to restart this. So let's say 4 hours. So on this side over here, I want to get a bin up. How do I do that? Right click, yeah, new bin window, exactly. You guys are listening this morning, all right. We'll see how that goes in about 2 hours. All right, good. So, so here are my bins. These folders are divided up amongst the different types of content that are available. I recommend that you try to be as organized as possible. Do as I say, not as I do, because you can see I've already started to throw stuff in here that has no organization at all.
So how do we create a new folder?
Good question. In the bin, just right click and choose new folder. And that brings up a good point. If there's anything you want to do that's not blatantly obvious, usually it's a right click. There's a ton of submenus in this stuff. So, if you, for example, like later on, if we want to animate something in the 2D program, it's not really obvious how to do that. But if you right click on the something that you want to animate, there's your option. It'll come up and say animate position.
Does that apply to everything on the system?
Everything. you know, just I would say almost
So
spin that.
if you ever get lost, just right click and
Right click is usually there's some kind of help to be found in right click.
okay.
In fact, you could spend a whole day just playing around and right clicking on stuff just to see what's hidden.
Oh, okay.
Right?
And then reset it at the end of the day. Obviously.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's all, you know, just contextual menus that come up based on whatever it is you're right clicking on. So for example, in a bin, if I right click, I'm going to get this submenu. I'm not going to get this submenu if I right click on an input. I'm going to get a whole different one, right? And that's directly related to whatever I'm right clicking.
And then settings and all that will fall under each.
Under each thing, yeah. So for example, this morning, Yusuf and I changed the way that this graphic behaves. I'll show you. Right here on the graphic, if I right click, I can choose properties and set a fade in and a fade out value, right? So rather than it just coming on and turning off, by setting this fade in and fade out, now when I run it, it doesn't do it. Theoretically, it would fade in and fade out. I might have to reload it for that to work.
Now, if it's JPEG, it will fade in and fade out. If it's animated, it won't.
JPEG is going to be a still file.
Yeah, there's some things. Only JPEGs help us to fade in and fade out, not the animated.
Actually, JPEGs are going to load just like a full screen graphic, like this lion or this color bars.
When we, let's say if I have a picture uploaded by Michal, I can use it as background, but if I use the DSK and use fade in and fade out as 20, 25, it does that. But if I do it here, of course, it's just scissor cut.
Right, it's a cut unless, if you, let's pretend like this is a JPEG here. I've just double clicked on it, it's loaded down here in the frame store too. If you want to fade into that, what you would do is you'd use your mix. Instead of cut, you'd use mix. Now, if I were to hit auto right now, which is auto take, which takes whatever is highlighted here, what it would do is it would actually mix to this, do a dissolve at 25 frames. You can set that right here above mix. But it would also do something else. It would also bring in this downstream key. And the reason it would do that is because I have it selected here on this row. This is an action row. So this auto take button takes its cue from whatever is highlighted here. So for example, I'll just do the mix first with the graphic. So if I set auto, it fades up the graphic, right? Fades down the graphic. But if I were to select DSK1, DSK2, DSK3, DSK4, when I hit auto, what it's going to do is it's going to bring in all of these graphics simultaneously and dissolve to this Bengal tiger now.
Okay, press it. Oh.
How beautiful.
Okay, so what's this called here?
Okay, these are this is the effects row. So anything that you see here is going to be queued to run as an effect.
And what is that link? It seems to be some kind
Yep.
of... What's that?
So what this tells me is that this effect that's loaded is using the resources of downstream key 1. So they share the same resources, meaning you can't run them both simultaneously. For example, let's run the effect. So here's this picture-in-picture effect, and it has a graphic element to it, and that's why it's using this downstream key. So if I were to try to run this downstream key right now, it would actually kill this effect. See that? Because they can't run simultaneously because they are using the same resources. Now if I wanted to use this DSK, I would just literally drag it over here to DSK2 and it would load it here. Now, while I'm running that effect, I can bring this graphic up.
So previously we tried to do this using an effect with DSK. Of course, it wouldn't help because it doesn't run 7. But DSK2 were never activated.
Correct. DSK. The reason you couldn't do it before is you only had one DSK layer. So now that you have more than one, you can actually push the DSK you want to run down on another graphic layer.
Here you see the cut, the fade would also do that. On the bottom line.
So cut is basically just going to cut program and preview unless you turn this lock button on. Okay? Cut lock locks the cut and auto button together. Why would you want to do that? let's say you're on camera 1 and you have camera 2 queued up, okay? And when you go to camera 2, you want to automatically trigger a downstream key to come up. For example, like their name. So on DSK3, I have a name, okay? So I'm going to select DSK3 and turn off DSK2. I don't want this background graphic to come up. By turning on lock, when I hit auto, it's going to do the cut to camera 2 and bring in the graphic simultaneously. And then, of course, when I hit auto again with cut lock on, it turns it off. So it's either engaging it or disabling it.
Can you do it again?
Sure. So there's the cut to the other camera with the graphic coming in simultaneously, and then cutting away turns it off.
Oh, but then how do you then cut the name out but keep the same?
Okay. So what I would do is, if I wanted to kill the name at this point, I can either just hit this green button right here, which is what we call a hot trigger, and it just turns it off. Or if I wanted to take a few more clicks, I could turn off lock at this point and then hit the auto button.
And you can still put this both of them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to cut to lock that other one, and you want to put both of them running on the other camera.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same. It applies the same way as you're putting on the other input.
Correct.
Camera. Okay.
Now, auto is doing nothing right now
Yeah.
because there's nothing selected on this row.
Yeah. So if I select this K1,
Mhm.
say, and then auto,
Yep,
then it brings out that.
brings up DSK1. If you wanted to, let's say you wanted to get rid of all these things in one stroke,
Yeah.
what you could do is select everything that's
Select
highlighted, yeah, and hit stop.
And everything else.
Gone.
So once you select those DSKs,
Mm-hmm.
you either activate them
Mhm.
if you play auto, and all of them are going to be playing,
Correct.
or you select them and you play stop, and all of them.
All of them will stop, yes. Correct.
Just for the sake of everybody's understanding, just unload everything from on the
Oh, the
DSK.
You want to unload everything?
Yeah.
You can right click and just choose unload every DSK. And just dumps them from the memory. So each DSK, there's a card inside the box, a physical card that's responsible for running these graphics, and that card has memory on it. And by doing that unload every DSK, you're purging that memory. You're just getting rid of it. Same thing is true with the effects. You can right click on an effect and choose unload current. Unload current effect. There's only one loaded. So
Okay, so how do you reload?
okay, so loading is done either by drag and drop or double click. The difference is double clicking will load into whichever one of these is highlighted, or if it's an effect, it's always going to load into here. If it's DSK, it's always going to load into here, and I'll talk about how you know which is which. First, let's say we're working with DSKs. When you double click, you'll notice that it loaded into DSK1. So anything that I double click right now, you see this little green bar going up and down? That means that that's where it's loading to. This is a rather large graphic. If I go through and just keep double clicking, it's going to keep going here. The reason it's going here and not here or here or here is because this little button right here is lit. This is the default load path, and I can assign that by just selecting the different DSK. So for example, if I want everything I double click on to load into DSK4, I would select DSK4 and then start double clicking on graphics.
Okay, so the green, that hot trigger, green is not on right now when there's a DSK in there. Why?
Well, it's not on because it's not running.
Okay.
So when I click on this, it's running. That means it's active.
And then if you got one of the ones highlighted, can you drag into something that's not highlighted?
Correct. So if I wanted to drag and drop, I would select the graphic and drag it to the DSK that I want to load it to.
But it doesn't have to be highlighted.
No.
You're dragging it right into
Correct.
the box. Okay.
Correct. It sort of overrides
Oh, okay.
that
Process.
default path, yeah.
If you got one effect running live and you want another effect coming in at your next program, how would you just prepare so that you don't have to kill the one that's running and then bring the other one in?
Okay, so let me take, let's see here, let's use this graphic and we'll use this graphic. All right, so this graphic is on air currently, okay? And when I go to the next shot, I want a different graphic, okay?
Effect, basically.
Right? Is that what you're asking?
I'm looking at effects with more than one graphics, and you want to kill that effect and come with another effect when you cut it.
Here's how to do it with downstream keys. So if I drag and drop this, I'm going to put it into another downstream key, okay? And it's going to be queued up and ready to go. So it's queued here. DSK3 is lit. I'm going to choose DSK2 as well because I want this one to go off. So when I hit auto, what's going to happen is it's going to turn off anything that's on, and it's going to turn on anything that's off. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And by doing the lock, it comes with the cut, remember? So what's going to happen when I hit auto is it's going to cut to this camera, and it's going to drop that pizza graphic and bring up the other one. Correct.
The effect on the first should be still on.
Oh, it's just going to drop it. It's not going to animate out.
There's no animation on this currently on the out. So if you want to set one, like these effects are built, and you determine when you build the effect what kind of animation there is to it. So for example, on this one, we would go to the properties and change the fade out value, right?
What can we change the position? I mean, like
how it moves and everything?
Yes, yeah, like it's slided in, so
Yeah.
then we have it slide back up.
Yes, you'd build it to, you just build the effect to do that. Actually, I don't know if you can do that.
So can you
That's a good
only
question.
add on
Write
to-
that down. We'll play with that in the character generator.
So you're saying you can only add and add to the effects that are available on the animation itself. You can't actually like manipulate the animation.
Depends. If the animation was built using this software, then you can.
Okay.
But if it was built as like
But if like she brings something down, you can't do it through here.
The only thing I could do quickly is adjust the fade value.
yeah.
So fade it in and fade it out. I can make
Simple things like
simple
that.
thing like that I could
Okay.
do. But any kind of actual animation of the graphic.
I can prepare that.
Right.
So it'll just be a case of queuing and animate in,
Right.
which it'll do because that'll be the beginning of the animation.
Right.
But then somehow I'll have to queue and animate out as
Right.
well.
So what we'll do is with your graphics is you will have an animation that begins and then is meant to stay on screen in a certain way.
For a certain time.
For a certain time, and I can actually add a pause point, that basically will either loop an animation or stay paused on a frame, and then when I hit auto again, it'll come out the way it's built. So that'll make more sense when we actually start.
Well, yeah.
But let me just come in there. You see that what she's talking about, like these animation. When you go into character generator and you're creating a text, maybe like you want to put somebody's name and the profile and everything.
Sure.
Yeah, because
You
text I won't be able to prepare.
can still animate it how it goes into in front of the screen. You can animate it and comes from the side or from the top,
Right.
flowing down like this.
Right.
That you can do on character generator. And you load it on when you come here onto the switcher, you load it on the DSK1 maybe. And then when you play it, the effect will come as it comes onto the screen.
Right.
Create the effect in and the effect out.
You can do it on the
Go in, it'll pause, and then you create the effect out.
Correct.
These faders here you're talking, you can also set your frame switching. You do the same as a mix fade.
So a mix fade and fade.
Yeah.
So what these do is a fade just fades.
Just fade in, fade out.
It fades everything to black.
Oh.
Fade is fade to black.
Oh.
So no matter what's on air, and you're not going to see that in this interface, by the way. So when I hit fade, you won't notice anything happen here. But on your actual video output, it's going to take it and fade it to black.
If you need to fade between your
If you want to fade,
sources, then you do fade mix.
fade mix is actually going to fade to black and come up in another source. See that?
And if you set 25 frames, it'll be 12 in, 12 out.
Correct. So if you just wanted to mix between two sources without fading to black, you're going to do a mix. Standard, regular.
That will be same as cut. You just set your fade how in
Correct.
your frame.
Right here is where you'd set your fade. Now you can also use the T-bar here. Just grab that and mix between sources. But, you know, I don't know.
And then can you,
Right.
That's an old.
the fade between two feeds,
Mhm.
can you manipulate the time of how long it takes to fade between the two scenes?
Yeah, both with the T-bar. So if I just set it right here, it'll sit on that forever until I tell it to go.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh, is that the virtual handle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if I change this duration here, it's currently set at 25. If I set it for 255,
Okay.
it'll be a long fade.
Wait until.
Yeah. And you
Okay, so I'll do one of those
Take me-
really
So
slow.
the more the
fades. That's
number,
Just have
the
an alarm.
longer it takes.
Yeah, the higher the number, the longer it takes.
Higher the
Okay.
And there's keyboard shortcuts for changing that quickly. Comma, we'll set it for a quarter second, which is 6 frames in PAL land. Period is a half second, which is 12 frames. And question mark is 25, which is a full second.
Okay.
So here's a quarter second, half second, full second. And I don't have to actually click on here and change the number value.
Oh, okay.
That's comma,
And-
period, and question.
And the shortcuts to all of this stuff, is there somewhere where we can
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
check
manual.
it and print it out or
Mhm,
something?
mhm.
Do you have a keyboard with the short cuts on it? The keyboard.
We don't sell a keyboard that has the shortcuts on it, no. But you know, we
Because
could.
usually they have the keyboards that have labeling on the shortcuts on it.
We have actual control surfaces that we sell.
Mm-hmm.
So like a physical switcher that has all that capability on it. Or you know, a lot of people just take labelers and just print out a label and put it on the key. You know.
But in the
So-
meantime, is there a paper with all the shortcuts?
In the
Where can we get
manual,
that?
in the manual for the switcher, which is on this disc,
Okay.
there is an addendum in the back of the manual that has all of the keyboard shortcuts.
Oh, excellent. So we can just print it out and stick it to
Correct.
the desk.
Correct.
Oh, so what's the key shortcut for auto?
The space bar. Enter is cut.
It says cut and space bars.
Auto.
Auto.
Auto take.
When you're setting up the effects, each time you do it, it'll all set up on preview until you cut to make it program.
Right. When
Like this
Yeah.
it'll all come in setting up what you have in preview.
well, DSKs are always going to run over program
Oh,
by
okay,
default.
straight into live.
But effects typically are transitional and will take you to preview.
Wait, sorry, what's the difference between effects and DSK?
Okay. So a downstream DSK is downstream key, and it means an on-air graphic. Effects. I'll load up an effect. Let's see here. Big effects. We'll use dwarf. These are kind of cool. Use this one here. So effect. Anytime you're about to run an effect, 90% of the time it's going to be transitioning from one source to another and leaving you on that other source. So for example, we're going to go away. Let's turn off Scooby-Doo here for a second. We're going to take out Scooby-Doo and we're going to go from this camera shot to this camera shot with this effect. Okay.
Okay.
You can click on it or cut it.
You can click on it or hit auto.
Oh, that's
Cut is always just going to
Just-
cut between two sources, no effect.
So why do you have to turn off the Scooby-Doo?
Just because it looks weird if I didn't.
Just leave it on and see what it looks like.
Oh, that'll be live on. It's not
No,
part
but
of the
that's
effect, no?
more-
It can still be
Well,
used
yeah.
for certain
It's your,
things, right?
you know, it's all your personal style and
Okay,
whatever.
okay.
I think it looks weird. You
Okay,
know.
yeah.
But it depends on the show, obviously. as well.
Right. Yeah, you may want to keep a graphic on air the whole time. Like
Just a
that.
quick question as well. I know you went over this yesterday, but I just wanted to find out again. From a camera point of view, look at the difference in color. How did you say we changed that?
Yeah, so if you go to the input settings, and we change this from RGB, it should be set for YUV.
Okay.
Okay, wait, input settings?
Yep.
Program bus.
Wait, where was that again?
So the problem, let's go back to the problem here, and this illustrates another point. So anywhere you see a problem, like the color on this camera, for example, your first best bet is to go wherever you see the problem and right click.
So you need to know
Okay.
where the problem is.
Right. So we know the problem is on camera 1, right?
Okay, so program there, are those all different cameras?
Yes, these are all your
One
sources.
and two.
And we only
at the
have
moment they're active.
Yeah. Right now, all we have is 1 and 2 selected. So I can tell you right now, just looking at this, okay, 2 looks good, 1 does not look good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on 1.
Vision mix. Yes. But everyone's
Input
involved.
settings.
And we're gonna choose input settings.
Oh, wait, sorry, settings?
No, we did with some of the guys.
Yeah, so if, when you right click, you can look down the list here and see maybe which one makes the most sense. Like, you know, if you didn't really know anything about it, you'd think maybe color correction was where you need to go because the color is the problem. But after spending a few seconds in color correction and not getting any results that you wanted, you'd figure out that, okay, we need to go somewhere else. Input settings, if this is a good thing to look at. I mean, you can see here, well, number 2 looks good, and it's set for something different than number 1 is. So maybe we should set number 1 for the same thing, and then sure enough. There you go.
Wait, so did you right click that?
Yeah, well, I clicked on this, and
Clicked on it?
yeah, and it's and
That's
then this
on
popped
15.
up. Yeah, most of the time when you see a window pop up like that, it is going to be a right click. But you know, if a right click gives you nothing, then
Okay.
try left clicking.
Okay, so what did you press on there? What is you?
So YUV
YUV.
versus RGB, they're just different ways to manage component video.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, I thought you like had a setting that was for camera 2 and then you applied it to camera 1.
On the composite, what
No.
inputs do you get?
In composite, you can choose between S video and composite. You'll notice this morning I took the SDI cards out of the box because we're not going to be using them at all during this training. At the end of the day, once you get those cameras we were looking at yesterday in Farad's office, we're going to have to put the SDIs back in again. So
Mike, if you've got say your ITV logo within the right hand corner, that's going to be there permanently basically.
right,
You have to load it into DSK,
right.
and so then the one is occupied the whole time, or is there a way that you can permanently leave that one on there?
No, you,
Without occupying a DSK.
no, it's going to have to be up there the whole time. Yeah, I mean, you could chroma key it. You could have a graphic keyed on air, but that would severely limit your capability in terms of switching. So you would end up tying up a DSK the whole time for that. What you could do, if you wanted to, is just standardize on having that bug in any graphic that you build.
Yeah.
So that way it's just part of any graphic and you don't tie up a DSK that way. But, you know, it'd be nice to just be able to dedicate a DSK for that, you know, because you may want to fade in and out a graphic or be without any other names on air at any time.
But every time you cut, you got to deselect the disk that's highlighted on that bus, is it?
No, you can just leave it up the whole time. If I turn on, you know, it's not even selected right now, so anything else I do, it's just going to stay on air. If I mix, if I fade, if I do any effects, like we were doing Scooby-Doo earlier, stayed on air, that would stay on air too, you know.
So if it's not affected,
As long as it's
make
not,
it a,
yeah, as long as it's not highlighted on this bus, it'll stay on. Unless you click on this green button over here and that turns it off as well.
Oh, so there's a bit of a delay.
On this one, because there's an animation. So it wants to finish its loop before it drops off.
Oh,
If you don't want that, again, you'd go into the properties of it and set a fade out value. So we'll set one for 6 frames. Save over original file. I might have to load it again. I think we noticed that last time. Yeah, see, so it comes off.
Okay, so when we change the properties,
Uh-huh.
have to reload it.
Yeah, if you change the value of the fade, then you're going to need to reload it.
so like we did yesterday with the Tiger, it only came back on once you rebooted the.
Right, see, so now it's fading out.
So if you want to put while you are still there with the logo, if the logo is on the screen,
Yeah.
and then let's say maybe it's covering, something is covering the logo, and you want to, maybe let's say if our logo is here,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to put a scroll
Mm-hmm.
from here,
Yeah.
from the DSK, say maybe DSK 1,
Mhm.
and then there's a scroll that needs to be running.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The logo, how does it go? Because sometimes you find maybe the logo itself is fading off, or maybe, and how do you maybe enhance the logo not to be washed out by maybe your lower thirds or whatever?
So remember what we talked about this morning, Yusuf, was there is these are in order of which that they'll be visible.
Okay.
So DSK1 is the bottommost layer.
Yeah,
Anything you run on DSK2 is going to be obscuring DSK1.
yeah.
So if you don't want your logo to ever be obscured, always run it on 4.
Always put it on 4.
Correct.
It
So right
should
at
be
the
on the
top,
last. Yeah.
Right, so it's always on top, no matter
It's
what
like
you run.
layers.
That's why Scooby and Shaggy are underneath
Okay.
this graphic right now.
Otherwise that would be behind.
Right, so if I take this graphic and drop it over here, and then reload this graphic right here, you'll see this on, and then Scooby's going to cover it up.
Okay.
Do you have a key in intensity that you can adjust, be it the bottom or the top, where you mixing it and see how they mix together and make it one more prominent than the other?
Wouldn't you just play with the color settings?
That would
like a chroma key type of thing. with
right.
two keys.
Once the effect is made, there's no way you can change the opacity of it.
At creative level, so we'll be able to change it.
So, for example, this Scooby and Shaggy.
Yeah, say I could set the key, try to manipulate the
Right.
key level.
Yeah, there's
intensity. How can I do that?
there's
To try to
no
bring that logo
yeah
to
no
the
there's no way to set that once the effect's been made. All I can do is the fade in and out value.
So I
So-
must make sure the one I want prominent to be on top.
Right. So if we open up character generator, for example, this would be something that either Michaela is doing, like when she makes the graphic, she'd set the opacity to be 50 or whatever to have some transparency to it, or if it's something you decide after you build the effect you want to do, you would load it in this application. So if we go into our effects, DSK1, and we'll go grab Shaggy. All right, okay, so it can't find the original graphic right now. But what I would do if the original graphic showed up, and it's going to give me tons of
Why
trouble.
can't it find it?
When this graphic was made, it was the background image, this blue you're seeing, was in a different directory than it is currently. So it's a missing link, basically.
So how do you find it?
I would have to go. If it was something that I made,
It would
like
be in some
in
file.
some folder, and I would just first off, I would delete that, right? And then I'd go in and I might actually have it if I go into multi-DSK, CG, source. Yeah, so here it is. So I drag and drop it, right? And now it's going to reassociate this graphic when I save it back out as being in this destination now. C, GlobeCaster bins, multi, blah, blah, blah. This is where it's located on the hard drive. The other thing you can do is if you are building graphics here, you can go into the properties of the page properties and turn on what's called embed linked graphics, which means that anytime moving forward you load this effect, it automatically saves anything that's involved with the effect to the file itself. Does that make sense?
To the file. Okay, well, where is that file location then? Oh,
Well,
no, like,
so right
would
now,
it be
the file that I loaded and this background image that I just brought in are in two different places.
yeah.
What I'm saying is by turning on embed link graphics, when I save this out again, it'll actually combine the graphic with the effect.
But not change the destination.
I determine the destination when I save it.
Oh,
No,
Would it-
all these
what name would it
things
say
are
it on?
looking at it.
You have to assign a new name, or would it write over one or the other?
Well, if I just hit save now,
Yeah.
it will save over the original file.
Yeah.
Okay. If I drag and drop this, so like let's just say I drag and drop it, yeah, I'm gonna have to label it. So it's rendering it, it's dragged out, it's saved. There's no name for it. It's just the default name is page.001, whatever. I right click, rename it. I call it new Scooby. All right.
This one, let's say I select this now, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you double click, it's going to drop it here.
Right.
And if I unclick here and I save it, it's not going to save over it. It's going to fall separately.
No, it'll save over this one
So
again.
if you unclick,
Right. Because I've loaded this graphic now, that's the current graphic that I'm working on now. And now, by hitting save now, it's actually going to overwrite whatever changes I've made to that graphic.
Unless you decide to change the name.
Yeah, I mean, yes, if I rename the file
Then
now,
you'll just save it as something else.
it's likely that it would. I'm not sure.
And it'll make like different copies of the same thing.
But let's change the opacity of this. That's what we came in here to
Okay.
do. So I select the object that I want to change, and then I'm going to go into the item properties. So in Character Generator, when we go through Character Generator, you're going to notice that you spend a lot of time using this thing. It's called the L cursor, aka the hell cursor, because it's a real pain in the butt. But it's how you select objects. So for example, if I wanted to change Shaggy, I would use it. I'm just using my left mouse button right now, and I'm just dragging across, just like if you want to copy and paste something off the internet, right? Same thing here. If I just dragging across, it grabs this big object. Because there's no text over here, it just knows, oh, you want this big thing in the background. And once it's selected, you'll notice like this keeps changing over here. Like right now, it has this letter A, which is what would type out if I started typing. It would take the properties here, whatever, Arial, 38 point font, white with black background, whatever. So if I go in and select this, you'll notice that it changes to this over here. Okay, that's the item that I've got in hand. Now, if I want to make any changes, guess what? Right click, right?
Okay.
So right click, item properties, and now I have this window here, and this is where I can adjust the alpha of it. All right? So I set that for half transparency or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And if I want to look at it while I'm working in this application, I can hit auto, and I probably need to turn off these other graphics in the switcher.
Oh, cool. So you can. Oh, so while you're in there.
All right.
Oh, so that's a
Oh, okay.
preview, not an actual thing that's you like. Yeah, is that a preview or what's really happening?
This is what's going out over air right now. So this is not a job you would necessarily want to do during a live show.
Before we were just limited.
So
My
we go
question-
straight over.
Go back, switch and
So you have a template that you commonly
Well,
use,
software
but you are
also.
manipulating its intensity and things like that. And you constantly using an original template. And say for some reason in between you went save, now it's save onto the original. How do you recover the original template? It's done.
It's done. I mean,
And
if you've been constantly making changes, then that means you've been constantly saving new ones.
Okay.
Just
So-
go back to one that previous.
So once we save on top of the original template, that's
it.
destroy. We have to
Yeah,
repair
yeah.
that. And
Go ahead.
on your folders and your effects and things, is it easy to just delete them, or is there any setting where you could take out the delete on it and it give you some sort of warning so that you don't make that mistake? If I want to delete one of your
Right.
folders there.
If I right click and hit delete on, I'm sorry, not rename. Right click and hit delete. It's going to ask me first.
okay.
Number one, do you want to send this to the recycle bin? Okay. So if I say okay, then yes, I do. Now I can always go to the recycle bin on Windows.
And grab it
And
there.
it's going to be in here, right? Somewhere in here, it's there.
How do I bring it back?
You just right click and hit restore, I guess, or
Yeah,
you could,
restore.
so we hit restore and there it is. Right.
There's no other protection that could limit anyone from deleting.
No. The only thing I can say is if you have content that you want to protect, make a copy of it and put it on your computer or something, right? So if you have a set, like let's say graphic package that you use for a show, you could make a backup of it, put it somewhere.
But otherwise, all the default images are on the CDs, right?
They're on
So
this,
if you delete anything by accident,
right?
you can still just get it off the CDs again.
If you mean recycle bin, then yes.
No,
Right,
I
talking
mean the
about
content.
Oh, no, anything you create is not going to be
Not
on
the
this.
upgrade. I said the default. The
Right.
default images.
Yeah. All the default stuff, all the effects that I've shown you guys
Yeah.
so far is on these discs.
And then I
We have
want
to
to ask
reload
you.
the whole thing.
Well, content is separate, so you don't have to reload the applications. You would just need to reload one of these
The
two
whole-
discs.
The whole content.
Um,
Right.
of the disk.
That hexagon that you had earlier on,
Uh-huh.
small hexagon,
Yeah.
the 3D, the things. Can you export that as an object and then edit it, by say maybe put your logo inside one of the hexagons and then input it back?
Yes. So what you would do, well, actually, no. I would say yes, but for some reason the original target file sequence for this didn't copy properly. I'll try to get you.
So that's not an object. That's a target sequence.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a flat image.
yes, yeah.
It's not a 3D
it's
image.
just a tiny-
Now, if so, this is part of a content pack we sell, and we do have the
So
target
I can
file
actually
sequence for
go
this.
and edit the original ones and it will.
But we wouldn't want to do that anyways. Like we want to create like new ones.
Yeah, no, but I
from
mean,
scratch.
if there's something that has got nicely there already and you just want to edit it quickly,
on the machine or off the machine?
Well, you can do it on the machine. Or, well, you have to
Well,
do it
you
in a
can't, because
different
what you're
way.
saying is
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
the
yeah.
format that it's saved in doesn't read on anything else, right?
You would have to edit it here.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, well, where I'm getting at is because you said I can't import a motion object. But I
3D
thought-
motion
yeah,
object.
I thought that was a 3D object, but now it's a
Right,
photo
it's a
file.
file sequence, yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, another question.
So
then,
could you
Mike,
just
sorry.
stop it and label something in it and run it again? Can I manipulate
Yeah, on
it?
the
Say I
program
stop it and I
itself.
put ITV in one of those
Right.
and run it.
You should be able to.
You should be able to.
What I'm saying is that the disk that I brought,
Oh, okay.
for some reason, the file sequence
Doesn't have the created file.
it's corrupt. So, like for example, if we go into this is the actual folder. This GC content right here is all of these disks. Like they're on the desktop, and this is in PAL DSK content volume 1, and it's disk 2, multi DSK. When I try to open this, I'm getting this error message. So it's a zip file, and it contains the original target sequences for this. So if that were able to open, then I could actually save it here, and you could reopen it, and then and edit it.
Yeah,
And by editing it, I mean you could actually move it, you could scale it, you could add a graphic on top of it if you want to, but it is a flat target sequence. I couldn't change the rotation, I couldn't, delete one of the sides or anything like that. It is what it is, but I could add to it. And I would do that in the Animator Compositor application. And I'll show you what happens when I try to load it. Just so you get a
Are they
sense
all
of what
target
happens.
files, those type of sequences?
The ones that are on our system, yes. The ones that you see here are, yes. Now, there are certain effects that you can edit, and I'll show those to you in a second. So if I go into Multi-DSK, and I go into Pan Am, and I go to Projects, and I go to, what was that called? That was like Corner Bugs. So if I load this, what you're going to see is the two layers that comprise this effect. But in the first layer is the glow you're seeing in the background. The second layer is the actual target sequence. And it's red because it can't find the actual sequence because I couldn't unpack it, right?
And that error, so is it coming on most of the effects or just a few that you're finding?
Any of these that
Any
came
of
with
the
DSK,
loaders.
the DSK volume 1. So, and you can see those in here. It's called DSK 1.
Okay. So all of that is not having its original file.
Correct. Now, some of these, I think these actually will load. Let's see here. It needs more memory. Let's try.
We can try and reload that other, so maybe it didn't copy properly to the computer.
Anything that had a file sequence isn't going to work. Anything that was generated directly in our application, like this right here, I think should work. So if we go into the Animator Compositor, and we go to.
But also, guys, like things that can be created from scratch, like we wouldn't be creating it from scratch in here, anyways.
Right.
I mean, like things from scratch, like new, visuals and stuff like.
Yeah, new stuff
You
you
do.
already created.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was
yeah.
created,
So you'd be able to edit it whenever is
Mm.
necessary.
I mean, yeah, like there wouldn't be any missing files or anything. I mean, like we can bring stuff in here and then edit it in here, but any original files, we can create outside.
Yeah.
But if you have the file and it take you like 2 minutes to manipulate, why would you want to spend?
Because you make something new from scratch. There's much more value in that than using something that's default.
Yeah, you guys have tools that are far superior to this. I mean, this After Effects suite that you have is going to be capable of doing so much more than this. This is for people who don't have After Effects. Now it would be nice to be able to edit all the things that are included, and you should be able to, but unfortunately this disk is corrupt or something. So I'll try to get you that executable so you could go back and change these if you want. But at the end of the day, if there's something you want to change, I think what's going to happen is you'll be creating the graphic yourself. So you'll be able to call Michaela and say, hey, I need that to be a little bigger and to the left or something like that. She'll just make a little change, render it out, boom, there you go. Now you'll have to, and we're going to illustrate in a minute here how to bring in what she makes and save it out.
Yes, yeah, that's
an
the main
effect.
problem. I mean, well, that has been ever since I've been here, I haven't found a way to bring it into here.
Right. So we'll
Yeah.
tackle that.
I wanted to ask you something else. All the effects and all the little animations and stuff and the filters, is there a way to preview them? Not on the machine. Is there a way to have a look at them?
Yeah, if you mean so not on the machine. You don't
I'll
want to
give
look
you an
at it.
example. Like, for example, I'm conceptualizing a show.
Mhm.
And obviously you have a bunch of effects and you have a bunch of animations, and I want to go through them and see which one applies best for the show without actually having to stop the work of the people in the studio and to have to go onto the GlobeCast and really kind of run through every single effect. Is there a way to put it on like a PC? This kind
all
of
the effects.
Again, she's going to be generating all the effects for the most part. So she's going to be providing them in an AVI or some file
Oh,
No, no, I'm not
no,
talking
no,
about the one
but,
she has.
Like graphics I'll be making, but like the transition
Yes,
effects.
yes, the effects like that's what you're saying. Transition.
He just wants to know if
yeah.
he can like I mean, are they like some kind of video format or, or sequence like I mean, right now inherently on this program? Like,
No, they're not. But there is an application you can install on your computer
Okay.
that will allow you to preview effects.
Okay.
And you can install it off of
CDs.
this software. Again, your computer is going to have to be either 32-bit application or
I got it to work completely on my system. I just can't go in it because I don't have the hardware.
okay. Well, on your system, we can test this then because it's a whole separate app and it doesn't require the GlobeCaster hardware at all.
Oh, okay.
I'll show you what it is. If you go to the programs and you go to GlobeCaster, it's called Preview Visualizer. So we're going to open that up. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to load up a transitional effect like this basketball, for example, and then just play through it and see what it is. Now,
And you could do that with everything on the GlobeCaster itself.
correct.
Okay, and that way, if I'm prepping for a show, if I'm conceptualizing a show, I can actually go through every single one of those to see which best
and then you
suits
can
that
find
show.
it out and
kind of sync
write
it into
in
the
the
show.
scripts and all that kind of
Absolutely,
stuff.
absolutely.
Oh, cool.
Your
Yeah.
effects and transitions, or do they?
Because otherwise, all you're doing is like spitballing the whole way through.
Do they have a certain name for GlobeCaster, or is it a general format?
.tfx is the format that we use. Yeah.
Done.
.tfx.
Run on Windows based.
Because I've got Particle Illusion on my computer, so
yes,
will I be
we are.
able to use Particle Viewer to view
Yes.
No, you're going to have to use this application to view them, and you won't be able to apply them.
Yeah, camera.
There actually is an application that convert our effects to Premiere.
Oh, is it
If you
Just one
wanted
second.
to.
He's actually on the camera.
Okay, that's nice.
There's an application
Okay,
that
no problem.
converts this
Yeah, it's called
preview visualizer to
Premiere. Yeah, it's called Trinity FX.
Okay, Mike,
FX.
Are you
one thing.
on screen recording?
Yeah.
All of this?
Uh,
Okay, fantastic.
I don't want to be sounding funny or anything. I hear people are more worried about how you're getting things, and especially on the editing side. Coming to the studio, all those things that they have been talking about. How do you bring them on here on a live show that is happening?
It's gonna be here.
Now, even if it's on a GSKs and all that, how do you key? You see, there's a green screen now. Give us a background, put all those things there, and how to see how everything is going to be running.
Oh, so you want to see it happen, basically?
You want to see it happening.
Okay.
Not just talking about it, but
Right, running it.
put it, run it, and let's see.
Tony,
Okay, well we can definitely use. Well, I've made some graphics for the ITV News, so if you wanna like use the ITV News stuff.
Mike, what you do is download again everything.
Uh-huh.
See, what we have been using so far, of course, it was only DSK1 available for us, so we could only use either these two of them, right?
Right.
Now, since we have all the availabilities, just unload everything. And couple of other questions, like we never utilized all this here. I want to know what is all this? Genlog.
Right.
Of course, when it's Genlog, the camera is Genlog. This switch on our older ones, they never got on. Only VideoNet light was on.
Right.
Surface, what was the surface all about? We didn't know. Yeah, normal. I mean, of course, there is normal mix and log out, log off, or some. On this, if you click here, some of the other options you get. Key off and all that. All just go through all these buttons here, so we all get to know that.
Sure.
These are the options available.
Okay.
Huh?
I'll start with the live, the strobe, and the freeze. Okay. So, live, strobe, and freeze basically is what you're seeing on the program out in terms of frame rate. Okay. So live is passing all your frames. Strobe is going to pass whatever frame rate you set here. And freeze is going to be literally a still of whatever's happening. So, let's load up a time machine clip. and we'll get a graphic going. Okay, so we've got this playing back, right? That's live right now. See how it's selected live on here? So I'm going to set it for strobe, and we're going to change the duration to, you know, I don't know, 10, 20. All right?
Is that now 20 frames per second?
That's one frame every 20 frames.
One frame.
So it's slowed down the
Right. So how would you apply something like this, right? I mean, what would I use that for? It's actually just sort of a function that's brought over from the editor application. There is an editor in here, and at one time it was meant to be a nonlinear editor like Final Cut and Premiere. People don't use it that way, but this is sort of a legacy little feature that was added into the switcher. You know, you could use it in sport, you know, if you wanted to just kind of make a soccer player running up the side of the field a little more dramatic or something, I guess. If you wanted to make somebody on the set look like they're a robot, maybe, I don't know. I don't know how you would use
Is
that.
that kind of like more like entertainment in the moment, experiential
Right.
kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's not, I mean,
So we wouldn't. I
What
mean,
do you
what
mean
we
make
wouldn't-
someone on the set look like a robot?
well,
No, well,
You
they'll be
change the
moving-
frame rate. So if the
they'll-
guy is
Oh,
running,
okay,
you can
okay,
either speed him up or slow him
So
down.
just
You can do a
processes.
slow motion.
right.
Okay.
Now
Strobe.
I see you slowing the frame rate. How do you increase it for it to go faster? Would you go
Even,
minus or
Yeah. The smaller the number, the faster the frame rate.
Is there a
In
minus
this case,
to add
if
in?
I have a
No, you
person
can't
there,
make it go faster than real time.
Okay.
if I have a person there who is moving,
Uh-huh.
and if you select the input and this person moving, it also creates a strobe on his action
Correct,
as well.
correct.
Just somebody just go quickly into the picture there, and I want to record this because at least this is the first time in 10 years we'll be using strobe. I just want to know, you know.
Yeah, I understand.
Monga,
But Mike,
I want you to
this
see you
would
do
be
the
like
robot.
if you're doing sports.
Oh wait, so you want
Or do the
something-
Batman.
What the VT guy is doing.
no, anyone said ask you to do boxing?
Hey, Mike?
Yeah?
That would be basically if you're doing sports, what the VT guy will be doing. Is
Right.
structuring a little bit for highlights. And it's just
So
slow
if
down.
you create,
But this is not a common. I mean, it's not
It's
something
sports.
you're going to be using all the time.
No, it's not. You'll probably never use it,
Yeah,
to be
but
honest
that's
with you.
what
Yeah, I get you. You probably use it more for like a documentary
Just key in
as
the
opposed to
background.
anything else.
Well, actually, this would be an indication that maybe something's wrong with the picture. Like if it does look like it is strobing, then
See,
you
the problem
probably
with the
look
keying
at
it is that you're strobing whatever's on program, not on your key bus. All right. So if I had him keyed over himself, I could strobe that. But remember, program and preview is where strobe shows up.
So you slow both of them.
Yeah. So
Like for
But I
instance,
can't-
like
I
a
can't-
real
I-
show, like two people is screaming,
you can't strobe
yelling,
it on
screaming
that,
match at each other.
I can strobe what's happening in the background, but I can't strobe him because he's not on the program bus. Right.
Oh, okay.
See how these are related?
It's on the key.
what if you
There's no
select
strobe for
key?
It is selected. What do you
Oh, you
mean?
selected, okay.
So you can't stroke two people separately, for example.
No.
Because
you
he's not on
you
the
can
system.
either strobe the whole screen or just one thing in the program.
Yeah, because he's not a channel. Like he's not a physical channel on the
If
system.
you're having a
Yes,
still,
yeah,
a
but
still
you can strobe the
background,
whole
not
screen.
the
Yes,
time
yes.
machine.
Mhm.
Are you able to strobe it?
Well, no, because there's no frame rate to a
There's no
still.
frame rate.
It's just one still, right? I mean, you wouldn't know if you were strobing a still or
So
not.
only the object
Only a
which
time
will be in the
machine.
focus.
Anything moving,
Yeah.
anything motion related it makes sense to strobe. Now,
If
You've got a flicker
Sorry,
in the
Mike.
motion, yeah. And do you have something to deflicker it?
strobe can actually be handy for that. So if you had for example, this time machine
So yeah,
clip,
you freeze framing
let's set that back.
and you've got the flicker.
All right, so even on this, it looks like there's a little bit of a flicker. You see that?
Mm,
Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
fields are reversed. I think maybe if you re-render that with the upper field first or lower field first, it would fix that problem. But strobe can actually.
This is actually a lossless. I mean, this one was. Oh wait, no, it wasn't. It's quick time. I mean, there is an upper field and lower field for quick time.
Okay, 1 minute.
Yeah.
You just try to
Yeah.
be more practical and need to show you something. Remember yesterday with that background that you tried to fix it. This.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's strobe this.
Okay.
Like the high contrast and.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Turn on strobe on program. and then set your value for something higher than
Sometimes
2.
you freeze frame.
Say maybe
Freeze frame
50,
frames,
50.
you can mind your flicker.
Let's say 10.
It's a divided factor,
And
remember?
then
You
enter.
can, if you do it on here, you can maybe
It's a divided factor.
So it will reduce the. So
The speed, it's the same speed. It's only showing you a frame every once in a while.
But that will also be affect the person on screen as well.
This is directly affecting the program bus. So anything on the key bus is not going to be affected. If you're chroma keying someone in on this, they'll still be in this full motion.
Oh, okay.
If you got your camera on a live feed, can you slow down everything that you see in the camera and no effects, nothing?
Yeah, I mean,
Because it'll be in a program bus.
as long as it's on the program bus, it will be affected by strobe or preview. I mean, you can adjust the preview bus too, which again, I mean, it's like, how would you would you see that? I don't know. I don't spend a lot of time on strobe. Let's see if we go to dual warp. Maybe this is how we would see it.
So
So
it's now it's only playing how many frames? Of which frames?
every 10 frames, it passes 1.
Okay.
And the freeze will just freeze what was in.
Okay, so it's still strobing the image on the right. And if we come over here and set a strobe for 10, so both images now are being strobed in this effect.
Does that affect the fade in, fade out? It doesn't affect any of that, right?
No, only the source.
Okay, so it doesn't affect anything.
Only the source. Now, if you set it for freeze,
Just freeze what's there.
it just freezes what's on air.
So freezing would be good for.
Maybe if you were,
Touching from a news to another ad or something.
I don't know, man. I mean,
Okay.
it's really, it's like,
Say
Yes.
I want to upload a program. I'm keying in this news. If I have 2 backgrounds of news with some effect, maybe like I'm running the store, and I just need him to come and go. Squeeze back, like we were saying.
Yeah, say you got maybe a guy on Skype here, né? And you got your key presenter news here. So now you turn into Skype, you want this to squeeze into that effect, and then you can see both of the people talking, then you want this to squeeze out. Would you be able to do that?
no. Because you cannot have a picture-in-picture while you're chroma keying of your source. So for example, you can't have a guy out on the green screen, turn the green screen